Awesome job. Back to sentence. And then when you're ready to do.
Good to go.
Good. Consider one of the best Argentina is preparing for engaging 24 Argentina for purchase American F-16 Army for possible war, making claims right sovereignty on only display the lost for situation. Considerably different Washington green labor to get Argentina to China. The USD 2 parties come to blows. And the invasion drops in the South Atlantic versus USD 25 South Atlantic potentially to classify Argentina, Brazil, China, Russia, again, following the invasion and dismissive Argentina's economy failed from the government see where Puerto Rico clauses and as no guarantee Britain prevail Argentina trouble with Brazil, UK, and Brazil for positive eventually the relationship with Brazil as a future problems war. As such, an allowed support that deters like 16. UK members of the EU officers needing support from members recognized as a problem is that EU committed in support and informed by working starting to claim that Argentina aggressive political same challenge as Falklands as GCOT. Else goes nuclear prohibition Lincoln 13. Latin American instability provides opportunities for rival threats, ability and security and competition among great powers leading to direct competition with nuclear power and several president motive and mean to employ proxies. Contended to achieve nuclear SRM now is unique 325. You can have projects for $160 million initially implemented nuclear efforts and dangerous precarious and the escalation percent and major governments with the scale of money that's our program like other programs with money to outer field response. President's program allows a unleash funding once experiments become normalized to say what small scale really means. That changes normal scale over home 25. Technology remain outbreaking the real world until they're deployed over the scale. There's no way research determines the attack safe, successful or reversible. You keep moving the world down the slippery slope. Inexperienced scientists and malicious actors block and danger beyond 25. Field project and engineering supplement on balance purpose actors more likely to carry hunting will open the door to government will allow to pilot funding for some tech government structures and well levels of self-employed government they require experience of various factors that what they have funded. U.S. is blocking SRM now level 24. Idea about for experiments with mentioned perspective Harvard for the cancel test and California saw an experiment severe on the potential consequences you can have small scale. EU accession captures prior to government's latter 25. You recognize the need to scrutinize the engineering to people only accelerate going forward. As you enter this period, regulating government, you adopted precautionary measures and after but you push for global moratorium and the use of SRM advocating more research on the technologies themselves and their application to engineering scientific communities enter the age of planetary security without institutional framework open to humanity complete permeation of living world by technology. Attempts to control the environment, drive reduction of nature to mere resources, the root cause of environmental exploitation and worldwide wage inequality. Lugo 3. Eco-managers looking to construct problems of action related to reducing encirclement of space and matter of system where materials can be dismantled, redesigned, and assembled and used acts of energy resources and fails miserably ensures that great material and material that will also be included even larger members of other people that less benefits accrue only a handful of highly developed places do not benefit pay. Managerialism culminates in extinction. View your balance, rejecting this mindset of both fiat and pre-fiat education with 19. Technology is a means and human activity when the instrumental size over and manipulation of technology become dominant and do say distant from being which is manifesting themselves in the presence of all particular being the session makes people forget who they are, present themselves in a superior position and emerges in the world like cloud between forces what awaits the world is doomsday when humans are wiped out the earth. As for doesn't solve climate change last 25, then it is illegal application consequences installed in the effectiveness geopolitical angle war says conflict and the melting Arctic first spectrum to require fueling the atmosphere based as only the higher temperature in the Arctic stratosphere solid injection costs $200 billion. Disruption made of weather patterns of Africa and Asia rapidization of thermalization cause for African increase in temperature itself without significant emission reduction measures collaborating effects of connections or cause of rising geopolitical tension space-based and expect billions of dollars termination shock and rapid warming. Moral hazard and biodiversity loss seal 24. Geoengineering the status of climate change biodiversity loss, moral hazard instead of implementing resolution of reliance on speculative future for tax laws in dependence locking over to 1.5 degrees of the cycle adversely determines cut the emissions and deployment increase values release of gases and cost effect associated with the deployment. Triggers preempted escalation extinction of electric 24 hours looking to the damage already done geoengineering transportation risk having state tension moderate temperatures and monthly will lead to address the action taking increased action to touch on real non-agency hospital nation suffering after some point the trigger interesting conflict after with current humanity. Ozone plot 10 and drug cost 13. As from all the global hydrological cycles and massive prison sorting agricultural people injecting areas of the country the decreasing of ozone layer termination drug associated with carbon buildup of one temperature rising 3 degrees decay in the marine club threatening severe threatening the Amazon ozone classes example of 15 ozone loss radiation was spared all the radiation we reached there damaging DNA and with long enough experience of of death within days of the dichotic of their cause extinction critically conflict generation with food shortage leading to the of removing fish accidents for conflict cut loss.
video available.
Because they open download it.
Use
I'm good. Alright, cool. Is anybody else not ready? Cool. Is anybody not ready? Yeah, the next one is obvious. China's West, but it's absolutely certain it was delayed invasion indefinitely. 422. CCP's existential investment in Taiwan is source of drinking on the forward field. Here, seeking out of Taiwan, but this is huge risk of the attempts to bring that into fruition. CCP proving willing to delay invasion as long as it seems to cause strategy or US to keep delaying. Really, activation can do keeping safe China and almost but not quite position will pursue reunification posture, but deter plans indefinitely. Here, it's proof. West Mecca 24. Only 12% of Chinese covert factions to and for a hostile foreign movement. 88% were opportunistic and played against vulnerable targets. Thankfully, AUKUS enables UK submarine sharing. MQ 25. UK Australia really keeps an anchor to all very, very outside the world. Australia will acquire three nuclear power submarines in the early 2030s to 2025 world games, including the UK's cherished record of Australia. Rejoining with split UK priorities, ruining AUKUS, Standard 23. New Zealand has now expressed interest with Canada. The EU itself is riddled, inviting with multiple often national foreign policy objectives across the United Europe looks remote. AUKUS is the only real option for the table to recognize UK. The alliance will continue to be crucial to the Indo-Pacific revenue transfer rebate over UK's financial contribution and regulations to stable it. March 24. The AUKUS pact of vital components sharing defense technology would not be feasible technology regulated by Brussels. AUKUS subs are key defense capabilities. Battle 24. In the event of large-scale Chinese assault military assets on them would be targeted submarines would be much harder to track the weapons significance. AUKUS capabilities would have a crucial role to play. SNS can be operational in key areas in the critical first 10 days. Taiwan war goes nuclear. Code 23. US-China war over Taiwan would logically use nuclear weapons policy contingent in the civil rights of Chinese leadership. Use nuclear signals to limit US intervention. China is willing to escalate to the highest levels to conquer Taiwan. Nuclear weapons against the US forces can be loaded in devices that will avoid defeat. Extinction Star 22. Nuclear weapons over 9th nuclear fighters from previous studies have calculated nuclear form lots of warming, sun that cause daily temperatures, all the nuclear war, mass extinction. 10 choose economy. The economy is rebounding, listen 25. Pace back and growth has continued to accelerate now at a high manufacturing should further signs of stabilizing new business to provide buoyed by the largest jump in exports since last October. Outside the EU, the UK signed external trade agreements. March 24. Outside the EU, it has signed a list of trade agreements with fast-growing countries which should not be feasible regulated. Brexit comes with the seeds of future prosperity. Empirics prove growth. March 24. In the 8 years since the referendum, exports and imports have risen by 11%. Even worse, rejoining would freeze the EU broadly. Cloud 18. The UK overturning Brexit, millions of people betrayed, reigniting visions. The last thing the British need to do in the House to advise this conflict any further deeper entanglement with Europe. UK would block EU reform, seek special favors, any alliance protect national interest. Your voters have the idea of a second vote violation of democracy becoming an existential national priority. UK is using its power to freeze the EU. The impact is a recession. Alexander 10. For the poorest people has estimated to push 155 million people into poverty. Then 3 Cyprus. Relentless pressure has weakened the Houthis. YT-25. This is the largest campaign the Trump administration has launched twice in that airstrikes. Military launches by Houthis have dropped by 69%, while drones by 55%. Cyprus bases are critical to refueling. Craig 25. Flight tracking data reveals that RAF has been facilitating Trump's prominent campaign secretary noted the role of refueling chambers after tier restrictors to the northern Red Sea. Other bases are overcrowded. Costing 24. Djibouti turned to China. The development as plethora of rival nations competing in the tiny African state. Affirming forces concessions on Cyprus. Luke 24. In the future negotiations over British membership, individual member states to bring their own rights to the table. Cyprus on sovereign basis as a new applicant, the UK would be applied. The EU can't risk being nice. Calendar 23. There would be no chance for renegotiation. We presume that Brussels will be eager to welcome back a country that so openly defined it for years, sparkling similar exits. Cyprus' sister regional strikes in won't continue. Craig 25. It comes with weeks after demonstrations gathered outside the opportunity protest threatened using Cyprus for military operations. Red Sea escalation draws the great powers of trade. Health 19. Approximately 10% of all global trade passes through its waters. Global powers such as US, China, EU, and Japan will be drawn to key access to key trade routes with economic competition and have increased risk of conflict. Great power causes extinction. Fire 21. Extinction is a risk amount of conflict device, so it's another area of global hidden development of dangerous tech or cause breakdown cooperation to the and mitigate other risk weapons and defenses to the either immediate use. Cross up star 22. Extinction must mitigate. Ready cross?
Yeah, I'll take first question.
Sure, we're gonna sit. Sorry. 1 second. Alright, you can take first question.
Alright, let's talk about the economy. How does all your unique evidence isolate from like growth that happened because COVID is something?
We'd say you look at the Martin evidence, which is specifically before referendum and after referendum, and finds exports and imports growth up by 11%. So it says it's not COVID, basically.
Okay, sure.
I'll take a question. Let's go to your C1. What's the link? Like, aka, why does UK joining solve Argentina?
That's the like evidence.
Yeah, explain it.
It finds that if external support from EU states is perceptually deterring Argentina because it sees that the UK is being supported by 27 other European powers and NATO. And it also takes an aggressive political stance in like challenging like the Argentina's claim to the Falklands. I'll take a question.
Wait, so your argument is that the UK has claim to Falklands and they're going to invade that, is that correct?
Yeah.
Unless they
Argentina.
Yeah, Argentina's going to invade the Falklands once the UK joins the EU. They're like together and they're scared now.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it challenges.
Cool. You can take a question.
Let's talk about external trade agreements. Why can't those exist in the EU?
External trade agreements?
We need like EU can sign external trade agreements. Why can't that exist in the EU?
Our argument is specifically also the cloud evidence that says that it's so little infighting that signing any external trade agreements with other different countries is incredibly hard because every single country has different priorities and is a census-based organization. I'll take a question. Let's go to your eco-managerialism K. If we don't do eco-managerialism, what is there an alt to this K, or is it just refusal?
Rejection.
You just reject it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you defend the squad, you're defending this system.
Question, can I take a quick follow-up?
Yeah.
So your first, the Flavel evidence says that the US is blocking, the Flavel evidence says the US is blocking SRMs. Why does that change the app world?
Why does it change in the app world? We're talking about UK SRM.
So this is just the US isn't doing SRMs.
Yeah.
Are China and Russia?
Probably not.
Okay, you can take a question.
Let's talk about Cyprus. You say other bases are overcrowded.
Yeah.
But then you only talk about African bases. What about bases in the Middle East, Iraq?
The Coughlin evidence is not, it gives Djibouti as an example, but also isolates a larger race to have bases and have military in the region.
Wait, but that evidence just talks about Djibouti.
Yes, and it also outlines a huge larger competition for bases.
Read me a line of what's there's 5 words highlighted in that card, none of them support that.
Okay, this is overcrossed, but you can read it says that Russia wants to have a stake in the region, China wants to do so, multiple other nations want to do so.
You do not read that.
Okay, and so we say it's also your burden to prove what alternative bases can be good.
Okay, sure.
I'll take a little bit of prep, I guess. Starting. Alright, so 45 seconds. I'll send it out. Wait, what time is that then? This is very Office and Econ and then Cyprus. On Office still 3 points. 1 man tank, you got 35. US non self-substitute Australia, no magic between boosting the US short versus ship that we can see. Producing both have the race to be delivered, things not what needs to be going, everything required sample and play US foreign money with no noticeable no. Expected ramp up, very high probability sub. Now arrived in Australia, controlled Australia without sub for decade 2, strategic disadvantage, routine 3. August has not substantial China devastation, China's aggressive military, that's over China's significant military, Robert Kennedy, limited attacks on China, retaliate, can weaken its defense posture trend on the US industrial relations, over talk on Australia 3. Pillar 2 and efficiency, C35. Pillar 2 has a lack of purpose and Pillar 2 command focus research and intention failing in addition China, not leasing gold, taking priority areas with project black, market people living trilateral innovation, unfurling, technology speed. 2. Standard strength 3 is massively power tag. It does not say that joining the UK would ruin AUKUS. It just like literally does not say this at all. 3. Regulation could be influenced by the global superpower. Also, ruining AUKUS is so bad that the UK, the EU would obviously stop that. Like, look, if the UK joins, they would obviously have influence over that, so they would not have to stop AUKUS. 4. No invasion. Legitimacy. Word 24. Forward stop economic activity threatening millions of Chinese growth. Social turmoil could endanger these world G doesn't need to solve time policy earn the legitimacy. G needs to have 3. Domestic policy, declining party, ideology, purification, and China's economy. Okay, on econ. 1. The UK economy is falling in recession in the LK 15. In the second quarter of 25, public growth and tax revenue will not reach the levels to maintain short fiscal policy chances, forced rate, taxes high, household raising station increase to 12%. Continue weak consumer confidence fueled by uncertainty, tax rates, tipping the economy towards recession, seeing levels as high as one seeing major stress, including 80% in financial stress and recession. For our evidence, has actually looked at things that analyze what happened in recessions, like apparently during the 08 recession and the pandemic. 2. Brexit is still causing economic woes due to the affect she saw. K23. The negative impact of Brexit escalates, reaching 6% of GDP by 2035. We analyzed the root cause of why the economy is down, which is why we saw the 2. No correlation between economic decline and war. Wall 20. I don't think even extraordinary economic conditions have that much impact on war. U.S. has suffered 40% of the fought 20 wars unrelated to economic public war. They have predicted 9 of the last 5 wars. States do not start war unless they believe there will be a quick and cheap victory. The motivation for wars is security, not economic conditions are one factor among many. Rarely, most cases. Also, it does not spill over. The UK has had a recession during the pandemic. It does not spill over, and it is not ready to unique worldwide. On-site for 1. Like, all of their cards are massively power tagged. First, on Column 24, we read US, UK, China, Germany, Spain, Italy, France, and United Kingdom have all established military bases here. They just say, oh, the bases are crowded. They're not highlighted. You warrant for why that is true. You hold the line here. 2, Luke 24 is literally just dumb. They can bring, even if they bring concessions to the table, it does not mean all their bases are cooked. They have not ready warrants for why that is true. Again, hold the line there. 3, EU definitely has incentives to be nice. Tariff shocks, etc. Hawkins 24. Given the shock from Trump's tariffs to Europe on top of the UK and shock and China's slow down the UK is going to give more of this sort of cross-border trade reform. Look, if the UK, a global superpower, is joining the EU and has massive power, the EU obviously will be nicer to the UK, which is why they want to force all these concessions. 4, the impact non-unique itself. Page 19. We read. The struggle for economic power will increase investment global power since the US, China, and EU and Japan will increasingly be drawn to literally just said that countries are increasingly getting drawn in the status quo, which is non-unique to their impact. And also, even if they get drawn in, there's no warrant why they start miscalculating now. There's there's no warrant here. Also, the credit evidence talks about less than 200 demonstrators. It definitely isn't a claim that applies to the whole country. I guess I'll do weighing now. Probability comes first. Considering all extinction scenarios with assessing probability of each one, if the policy follows and policy paralysis, we don't know what happens. Prereq timer continues. Know that event happens for a timing to matter. It needs to take place. And every 0.1 increase in probability increases the severity under 90% probability. It doesn't by judging friends any more than any other weighting must be default to give more warrants for probability. The reason why we outweigh probability is there's multiple geopolitical scenarios in which SRM cause extinction. Well, there's all isolated to one geopolitical scenario, which means that we outweigh on probability. Go from constant probability.
Yeah. It'll go frontlining, then backwards. Anybody not ready? Cool. On August, all we need to do is on econ. First of all, they say economy is down. They're just talking about a 0.1% decrease in the economy. Our evidence is more close to the fact that across all sectors, the economy is doing well right now. Second of all, remember that they also can see clause with a straight term from saying that the UK causes, or UK joining causes the EU to freeze their negotiations and causes them to fragment, which ultimately causes a disruption in the organization, which ultimately is bad for any solvency that you want on their end. But then, second of all, they talk about how Brexit was bad. No, but even if Brexit has short-term spikes in the upward, in the long term, we're seeing upward trends of doing good. Second of all, they say, or third of all, they say no war from economic decline. Our impact is really not war, it's just poverty. You can just read that evidence. But that, on cyclists. First of all, they say our evidence is power time. No, we say the UK has unique cycles in cycles that are key to things like air sustainability, which other bases lack. Second of all, they didn't talk about, oh, bases won't be cooked in the affirmative world. But no, because cyclists doesn't want to do any strike against the Houthi. That's why they would retaliate, which causes the fragmentation of those bases in an affirmative world, which only happens when they're forced to bring the bases to the table and the EU has control of them over them instead of the UK. Then thirdly, they said that you will be nice. But no, it's because they feel betrayed that the UK left because of Brexit. That's why they uniquely retaliate in an affirmative world where they're forced to bring consensus to the table. And then they say it's not unique, but now it's unique in the fact that Houthis have the moment of see their window of opportunity in order to escalate, and or now go to the neutral level because of the Red Sea and the ties to trade there. And then they talk about the GBP base and how that's not that bad, but once again, Cyprus is unique in the fact that it is air escalation specifically and helps refuel those. And then they talk about probability first. None of your actual warranting is comparative, and B will just win the probability weighing in the back half. But that on that scene. First, invasion cells, because their own evidence concedes, 25 finds that the Falkland advanced the Argentinian military invaded the Falkland Islands, the British military in 1830, they always claimed sovereignty invasion, copy that kingdom off guard. That means you never saw any, it seems to say off of that means that there's like literally no impact. But then second of all, you compare because archaeological strengthens this capability, so that was funny. EU integration and consolidation advanced into the Falkland Islands became one of the main topics for archaeological and defense initiatives that EU adopted. UK tradition to oppose defense cooperation EU framework as defense considerably. But you can turn the email charge to push over that to UK, defense, funding agreements, etc. I think all time EU integration advanced across the benefits, drastic immediate implications, security, defense, regular unlocking defense connection that UK tradition opposing to the cost of defense material weapon system. EU framework has even and with UK resolves not only the transfer back in order to teach EU initiatives London to launch their own initiatives outside the EU framework. But then, on geoaggressive. First, EU integrates climate-aggressive technology, which turns kids in our way. Guide 25. Combined emissions reduction in the EU opens up Pandora's box, improved capacity of use down to industrial carbon emission reduction without any differentiation. The second, only EU can economy checks lack of EU regulation to solve states. CIL was 21. Major impact of Brexit, the UK can now remain controlling diesel and not really able to also enforce on the EU single market and prompt action at international level to pressure the EU to better current laws, and EU policy can provide greater support for farmers and incentivize more sustainable practices and legal binding environmental improvement targets that are more ambitious and currently applicable laws in the EU. Couple of the card. Agreements of the EU framework guarantees public sector increase in UK need to adopt the Goals 5. EU gives example of logic and measures being provided by some different factors to prevent American policies that protect climate. EU treaties such as those to influence national level must constant expansion in industrial farms. Before we say that our sector contention is a prerequisite because nuclear war causes or as a destruction. Role 18. The nitrogen oxide produced in the reactor is found to have large nuclear fireballs to significantly damage the nuclear war. Basically, we said that Russia and China SRM stunts, that's no uniqueness off of their arguments. Simply, we said that the black market innovation ensures that evil SRMs happen anyways, which is also not unique. And 7, this necessarily means that climate change is doomed anyways because they exploit no other solution for decarbonization. Because climate change, even if you take in the highest power, climate change is just screwed anyway. But then on the K part, first we said that no microscopic shift. The beta and shape subjectivity, the nuclear size, and other back also happen on one outweigh, and even if we lose, we'll take even decision and the technical data try even hard later, and reach we go long field, so this is 10. Left is even working on large part around which is reacting, this is confusing as left of politics along with defined by negotiating the same. Yeah. Well, actually, I did that too far.
Oh, you did? Let's talk about Cyprus. cyberspace are given up, and that would cause extinction. Why would they like, force the EU to give up these states?
Well, first of all, they don't know that extinction will happen. Like that's just the sequencing of events that happen.
You as a high
Second of
schooler
all,
know this, but the EU doesn't.
we are just making an argument that this is a logical probability of what would happen if the scenario were to play out.
So
we're not-
no policymaker who also knows all these logical things, they would be like, yes, it's totally fine to cause change.
I mean, sure, I mean, debate is just like inherently like activity where you're finding for your arguments. This is just an example of that. But second of all, we can see, we're also like, the warrant behind why it is specifically bad is because of the Red Sea escalation, where we say that the Houthis are seeing their window of opportunity to
Wait,
immediately go
I'm
into
not
the area.
asking why your argument is bad. I'm asking why the EU forced the UK to give up these states.
Because that's part of the negotiations, and they see
Wait,
that.
no, but your evidence says they'll bring it to the table. It does not mean that they'll force them.
No, our evidence specifically says they're conceding to those.
No, it says they'll bring their rights to the table. That's what
No,
your
they're
evidence
bringing
says
them to
verbatim.
the table and they're having to give it up. But I'm gonna take it.
Alright, sure.
So let's talk about your first discussion.
Go for it.
We had an invasion of Argentina in the past, which your evidence concedes. So why didn't we see extinction?
We'll say the slow is different. Like people have more nukes. It's like it's more unstable right now.
So we have more nukes.
And also they have
why we
like
see
different.
extinction?
There's like new planes like the F-35, unique and stuff. So.
Wait, why are these all unique reasons as to why extinction would happen now versus
It's an
not in the
increased
past?
chance of drawing because there's like
Why?
there's more like risk of like also
Who is drawing it?
like the evidence that invasion draws in South Atlantic, the U.S., China, etc.
Who escalates first?
I would say there's been speculation stuff.
Between who?
Like I can't tell you. Because
So you don't have an impact. Okay, you can.
I mean, sure, yeah, we'll see your question. On your argument about the economy, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, let's talk about like economic harm from Brexit. If our evidence says that going into 2035, Brexit will still cause economic woes, then like how did the asshole?
First of
Or
all,
then like
First of
why
all, I
should
don't think your
you
evidence says that.
Wait.
Second of all, we say that even if there's short-term, like, spike,
But
or
the-
short-term downturn, in the long run, growth
But-
is projected to increase, which is what our evidence finds, and it
Wait.
analyzes every single sector,
Why
and
is
it's really.
growth like increase, I guess?
Yeah, because the economy is rebounding, we're seeing things like more trade, we're seeing GDP increasing, we're seeing that the UK is able to sign these external trade agreements, which improves GDP.
Wait, so if we can test your weakness, we can test the limit too. Like,
What does that mean?
Like if we prove that the economy is down, we win this argument.
Well, we'd have to, like, we are winning the uniqueness right now. But,
I mean, sure. Okay, you can have a question.
okay, let's talk about your fleet two.
Yeah.
Why is the UK unique for us?
It's the only country doing field projects, i.e. actually deploying them. Everyone else has done like.
So China and Russia are
You
not
haven't read
necessarily
evidence that
deploying
China and
them?
Russia have
No,
done
that's just
that.
a fact. that we're just doing that.
I mean, you haven't read evidence saying that, and also it's the only country doing field work, which is what both uniqueness evidence say. The only country it's unique. That's how it's tagged in the card too.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, really quickly, if you guys want the analytics, I was typing them during her speech. Do you want them?
I mean,
There are only three of them.
Delivered mine. I mean, on analytics on what?
On the very, very bottom of the SRM stuff.
I guess yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Sure. I'll just like throw them
We'll just send it.
in like a new doc. It's fine. I'm just quickly.
And just send it.
Yeah, I'll just resend the doc and you can look at it. Very cool.
Okay. Are you using it?
Yeah.
Wait. Alright. I see it.
Okay, cool.
Alright, starting now.
order. Weighing. Half leg. They conceded the probability metaweighting machines. You shouldn't write any of the time period metaweighting the last speed. We'll just accept the first one that the second one that a previous time period you need to know that an event happens for the time period even matter in the first place, and a 0.1% increase in probability increases severity under magnitude times probability, and triodide, the continued UK's unregulated non-checked use of SRM will spill over and cause existential risk. Extinction is inevitable in the status quo, so if the app has any marginal risk of solvency, you pull it trigger, the next existential impacts are non-unique, and there's reasonable doubt on the cascade of links, and 2, probability are internals based on numerous geopolitical scenarios of which only one occurring to reach extinction, so the global scope compounds into exponentially greater likelihood there are scenarios isolated to one instance. It prefers A, it's impossible for intervening actors to account for all the scenarios, but it's easy for theirs to address any one of theirs, and B, break the class in the way because ours applies to 100-fold more scenarios, and therefore scenarios are improbable. The Houthi attacks have probably fluctuated in the past, which hasn't triggered any of the scenarios, and the Craig evidence is not about the whole country. Eli, can you please keep typing probability wing? On the other contention. And on Argentina, we'll consider invasion stuff that takes out of all the terms and go to SRM. Because the world really grows about SRM control solar radiation combat convention is currently doing field project UK's tax tools over globally that NP represents that regularly the government will call the UK's due to line road actors explain SRM the US, so the US has a strong pushback for block experience per Flavel, and EU regulations cap the risk of precautionary bans for Lazard says that SRM costs trillions in aerosol injection a risk of rapid increase in temperatures without reducing emissions, and will go for the extinction scenario, 2 extinction scenarios. One will look indicate that temperature varies in unilateral action. Exploiting SRM triggers accidental events such as war and hotspots, and B, phosphorus says that SRM will alter the global water cycle, including the carbon and temperature by 3 degrees, causing drought even reports the conflict over water restrictions between nuclear powers that escalate existentially. And that always on magnitude in economy because they haven't read any extinction scenario there. They say EU integration is new tech, but no more for wide term states, and how leaders had solved our argument is that there's one extinction scenario coming as soon as SRM enters the hands of other people via aerosol injection, and they say you've got auto checks ready, but this is specifically the sale of petrol and diesel that conceded our warranty in the evidence of finding that EU does not match the solar radiation modification, sulfur aerosol injection, and debates over geoengineering, and they say EU framework guarantees carbon space, but we've not read evidence as climate change will cause extinction, and there's no way SRM plus a 3 degrees increase in warming, no certification on theirs. They say nuclear war causes ozone destruction, but our argument is about damaging the ozone layer by displacing ozone, and they made no claim about how it alters the global hydrological cycle, which makes our scenario unique. They say Russian SRM thumbs Russia and China, but this is not parted. They say China climate change screwed others, but we've not made a claim that we're solving climate change. You could join cause fragmentation, but our argument is our regulations already seen if this is true, then your argument about Cyprus is cooked because you can be forced to get a basic things and no setting to leadership, but they can see that you come in Jerusalem is a root cause of things like wage inequality because you use human resources to control other people. On economy, well, excellent analysis evidence, the best evidence in the question we analyze the latest fiscal policy that finds you guys changes economic policy recently has increased tax and rich in turn lowers consumer confidence, which is the best indicator of the economy, and we are not predicting growth of recession, and will extend that there's no evidence that says the long-term Brexit is still causing woes. And on the last thing, what should I read? They say EU has incentives to be nice. They say we feel trade, but that's no evidence on it.
Okay, we'll take that.
Okay, that was 1:30.
How much time total is it?
We have 20 seconds left. Yes. This is gonna Cyprus, Econ. Is anybody not ready? The Wayne's there. Cool, is anybody not ready? Great.
Very excited.
Cyprus, Econ, Cyprus, Wayne, Econ. Comparative geography. Is anybody not ready?
The round is game over. They get to Cyprus overtime. That means it's a conceded contention. I don't care about your probability, Wayne. Extend the scenario. That the escalation is down right now because from his increased tax, which is why they're visible at Island 60 down by 69%. Affirming is crucial. Negating is affirming is terrible because it takes away Cyprus' basis because the EU has to force strict requirements on the UK. That it takes away bases. That is one of those crucial bases that Trump used to bomb the Houthis. Otherwise, Houthi escalation is going to cause draw Red Sea escalation because they threaten trade, which causes great power to be drawn in. Calculation is incredibly likely when so much competition, which causes nuclear extinction from a nuclear winter. On their probability weighing, two things. First, the best way to jurisdict around is just to look at what rounds are conceded. Everything else is just personal bias, which means the fairest way to round is vote on Cyprus because there's so much defense on their case. But second, we see we link in because of the intensifies economic competition. There are many vectors of conflict that can escalate from the Middle East, which means we also get multiple different scenarios. We don't just say one. On then, do our own way. First, time frame. The moment that Houthis are able to escalate, that's when we're going to see great powers all drawn in and have eyes at each other, which is way faster than the SRMs, which take a long time before they actually have aerosols cause extinction. But second, a prerequisite. We'd say that when war happens and when countries are turning against each other, they're going to break all regulatory processes and they're not going to listen to any SRM controls. And on their prerequisite, climate change causes war, time frame up layers. On their tired eye, when you prefer time frame here, because even if intervening actors don't come in, there's intrinsic value to life, which means having a month longer to live is always better, which means you always vote neg here. On Econ. They have conceded over and over the Klaus evidence. It is very specific, that when the UK rejoins the organization, it's going to completely gridlock and freeze the EU, collapsing it as an organization, which means they cannot solve for SRM because there's no global spillover. If the EU is irrelevant to infighting, the board here is that the UK wants special favors. They hate, and there's also like infighting between like Spain, Germany, and the UK, which means that EU collapses the organization. Terminal D, this is conceded. I don't care about their way. This is game over. Go to their contention. Start on the third turn. The Jordan evidence is very, very specific. That says the EU is starting to dismantle regulation. It doesn't matter if it's only about petrol or all of the other green things. That means climate change is doomed in the long term. That means they don't get access to try or die because wait. This means that like they have a terminal solvency deficit because they only solve for one thing, which is SRMs, whereas climate change is doomed anyway, just means the ozone is absolutely screwed. And the fifth analytic is so good. It says that Russia and China are doing SRMs, and so that's not carded. Look it online. The first 5 sources will all confirm. You don't need a card for something that's factually true. I don't need a card that says that Trump won the election. Go to the second turn that says that UK autonomy is better for regulation because it says that the EU is a really long consensus-based organization, and when the Brexit happened, they were able to do more green-based regulation for themselves. That is always far better. Quickly they extend like a little bit of case stuff, but A, it's not warranted enough for you to vote on it. But second, they conceded double down that case, the subjectivities don't change in debate because we're just going to double down on our arguments, and switch side debating is like completely false and untrue. Negate.
What was the second last thing you seen on the case?
Huh?
What was the second last thing you seen on the case? I just crossed it.
The second to last thing was the UK turn. I extended Russia SRMs, the EU framework carbon is terrible, UK autonomy is good, and then double down.
UK autonomy good.
Yeah.
Which evidence?
That is the second card that we read.
Okay.
The CISL evidence. Okay, we'll take a question. Let's talk about this petrol stuff. If SRMs are regulated and don't exist, what alternative mechanisms do we have to solve climate change?
We've not read that there's not climate change solves extinction.
So then what's your scenario? Just to clarify.
Geopolitical hotspot escalates because people get mad that one country is controlling the climate, which causes preemptive escalation.
So we would say that our prerequisite answer still responds to that, in the fact that we also have hotspots that are escalating and preventing
Like your
any
internal
solvency
link is one scenario, but our internal link is multiple.
No,
scenarios.
but it's Houthi escalation isn't just limited to one
Wait,
scenario.
hold
It
on.
triggers multiple multiple hotspots.
Your
in the
internal
region.
link is just.
Wait, also this
our internal
goes
link.
back to my argument about this is completely arbitrary. You guys are also one scenario, one linkage between the UK and the EU. You
No.
guys are also isolating
Our
specific
internal
actors.
link is multiple scenarios, right?
So-
There's multiple countries that get pissed at the EU. Your internal scenario is just.
No,
And
no,
so
it's-
we
it
also
doesn't
have
say,
like multiple internal links.
like the great power competition and war that we're talking about is triggered by multiple countries being pissed off that the Houthis have control
But your
over the trade
internal
region.
link is one,
But-
like
And
one.
I know that we'd also say it's conceded.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we read Warren's why, like, we've also read arguments why your arguments are impossible. Like, Houthi
But we
have
also
fluctuated in the
responded
past,
to
you
that,
haven't
so-
seen your scenario, and your pegged evidence is not available.
Okay.
so
Yeah,
you
I'll
can
take
do
this
it.
Yeah, you can just.
If you say that UK causes like fragmentation of class the EU,
Yes.
how do you often?
So that's just terminal D on your case. You
So how
vote
do you
for
vote?
us on Cyprus.
Why? If EU
Because
collapses, then how does it force concessions?
No. There's two different things. First, they're going to force concessions in the process of joining the organization. Once the EU is integrated into the organization collapses.
Like, that makes no sense. If in the process of concessions the EU is pissed, why would the organization not just collapse?
So, okay, you're misunderstanding the cloud evidence. The cloud evidence says that once the UK is fully in the consensus-based organization, that means they can't follow any regulations or frameworks because they're always debating it. The Cyprus evidence, also this would be like an amazing response cross I have to make earlier.
No, this,
but
wait,
like,
well,
to clarify.
verbatim says, our argument shall die, regulations all exist, and if this is true, your argument about Cyprus is cooked, because the UK wouldn't be forced to get the base, the EU wouldn't be.
But that doesn't respond to the second Klaus evidence, which talks about the fragmentation that happens post-integration.
This concessions come while the UK wants to join the EU because they have to accede to certain regulations, and then the cloud evidence is after they've already joined the organization and cannot do any regular
Okay, well,
reforms.
this delineation was not in each, also just like.
But also
Because
this
that's a
is
new
not
response.
responded.
It's a new response
No,
to get
this
new.
was 100% in, or summary, it's like, said
You
that.
did not respond to the Klaus
Okay.
evidence. Sorry.
Wait, well,
That is time.
Alright.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It'll go eco-managerialism. Weighing our case. Yeah, their case, if that's okay. Extend eco-managerialism, the root cause of things like wage inequality, because people use humans as resources, means that their argument is inevitable. Because the reason why there's wage inequalities, economic recession, or things like trade disputes in the Houthis is because people use the earth as a resource to manage other people, which causes this is a conceded war, which means that their argument is inevitable in the status quo. You reject that using the, which is why you vote for us. They just say it's just substituted, don't change the date. It doesn't matter about changing substitutions. Our argument is your argument is inevitable, so you have to reject it on base. It's also conceded. At that point, we're going to win. If you see the high probability means higher magnitude, every 0.1 increase in probability increases severity under magnitude probability. Our internal link is based on numerous geopolitical scenarios, but their internal link is just on Houthi escalation. That means we're definitely winning the probability debate. They've also conceded the reason why their scenarios are improbable. The Houthi attacks have fluctuated in the past. We haven't seen their scenarios, i.e. the Houthi have been powerful in different points. We have not seen great power drawn. This is in summary. Also, their peg evidence is not about the whole country. Just to hold the line there. These are all in summary. They just say that look what's conceded of personal bias, but you're also say could or might, which means that we definitely are winning, and we've read response to why your arguments are improbable. They say that intensified competition needs multiple scenarios. Again, internal link is just one scenario. That's not it. They say time, but they can see that we prefect timers. You need to know that event happened for time to even matter in the first place. On this prefect, you need to win that the scenario is probably for this implication matter. At that point, it's in SRM. The UK is mostly aggressive with sponsor of SRM, controlling solar modification, and currently doing field projects. However, joining the EU is really good because it means that the EU blocks these regulations. Absent action, the SRM causes geopolitical preemptive strikes because they get mad at the UK for controlling temperature. So countries like Russia, China, India, etc. get mad at the UK for controlling the climate for them, which is why the preemptive strike, which causes extinction because of nuclear war. It's all conceded. They just said the UK checks regulations, but we've not read evidence that climate change causes extinction, nor have we said that climate change hurt the ozone layer. There's no implication of this term. They say Russia and China are already doing SRMs, but no, it's non-verifiable and it's out of your jurisdiction. It's not part of evidence. We've also said they're not doing field work. They say the UK joining cause fragmentation, but this argument is try or die, and they just concede to cook their Cyprus arguments because the UK wouldn't be forced to give a base if this fragmentation happens and it's try or die and its regulations already exist, so when they join, it wouldn't matter.
Okay, let's take remaining facts. Yeah, no, that's just. Okay. The order is gonna go Cyprus, then the econ stuff, and finish on SRM. Cool. Everybody nodded. Cyprus is functionally conceded out of your last piece. Remember that Cyprus bases has put pressure on the Houthis right now, and that's why because they're keen to things like refueling air bases. However, when you do the affirmative, that's really bad because the UK is forced to give up concessions in the form of Cyprus bases, which means that they won't be able to access its bases, and Cyprus doesn't want to conduct strikes under the EU and against the Houthis, and that's really bad because the Houthis see a window of opportunity in order to attack, and that causes great power drawn because they have ties with the Red Sea because of things like trade routes, which ultimately causes great power war, causes extinction because of great powers being involved, only causes nuclear war and extinction from nuclear winter. Now, on the probability way. Remember, they've conceded the impact out of summary and basically final focus. They don't have access to the probability weighing. It doesn't matter anyway. But second of all, they've also conceded the other terminal defense that we have read, saying that when the UK is fully integrated into the EU, that causes things like fragmentation and causes the organization to collapse because they have to comply with the strict regulations to be a terminal defense that they can actually solve for anything in the affirmative world, which means that they don't have access to any of the probability weighing or the prerequisite because the EU just collapses in an affirmative world. That means if you look at our conceded time frame weighing, saying that drawing immediately happens because great powers has in the region because of things like trade borders. It takes time for actual SRM to be implemented in order to actually solve back further ozone layer. Second of all, the prerequisite because we have great powers competing in the region. That means they won't want to listen to things like SRM regulations, which means that they can't solve back for any of the ozone layer that they talk about. Remember, even if they want to talk about time frame, we say that ours is first because it happens quickly at the internal link level and the impact level. And second of all, the prerequisite doesn't matter because ours is because they've just conceded our impact and the terminal defense from economy, which is why ours comes first. Go to their case. First of all, they've conceded that Russia and China are also doing things like SRM. They just said we need a card. Why do we need a card for that? Because they fact about the world. You should know this about your case. But second of all, they functionally conceded that EU will dismantle regulations, which means that we're in a solvency deficit for things like resolving the ozone layer. Sure, they say the scenario is not about climate change, but no, even if it did, we're still talking about regulations not being able to solve things like the ozone layer, which still means that you don't vote for them. And then on the double down stuff, realize that they mean nothing, but there's just no impact off of this. Honestly, they've conceded Cyprus. It's just really key for us.
Good run, guys.
Good run.
You guys are good.